It's the moment you've all been waiting for, my 2024 reading wrapped. There has been a lot of discourse lately about what apps people are using to record their reading throughout the year. I have always been a Goodreads girl, and then over the last year, I was dabbling in some other apps. But I'm curious, what are you all using? Because I know we have our issues with Goodreads. They need to update it. We're begging them. We've been begging them for years. But are there any other apps that you have been drawn to lately? I've been hearing things about a few, but I was wondering what you all had in mind. So please leave whatever apps you use in the comments below. My radiator is going off. This is NYC Apartments for you. Hold, please. I'm also getting a little bit sick of holding this, so I'm going to just clip her down here. The radiators have literally been silent all morning and have decided to go off as soon as I clicked record. I shouldn't have gardened before this. My goal for 2024 was to read 60 books. Unfortunately, I did not hit that goal. I don't really want to talk about 2024 quite yet. It was a tough one, as I'm sure most of you can relate to. So while there were months where I read a lot of books, or a lot of books for me, there were some months where I read none or only one. So it was a little bit scattered. But let's get to the stats. Like I said earlier, I have always been a Goodreads girl, so I will be using my 2024 year in books from Goodreads as my reference for what I read for the whole year. So let's get into it. Okay, my 2024 year in books. I read 22,407 pages. That's a lot. So I read 54 total books. Didn't hit my goal. I was a little bit off, but that's okay. We forgive ourselves, and we are starting the year off in better spirits. And I actually have a secret for you all. I haven't finished a single book yet. Yeah, for me, that's very crazy, to be honest with you. But the last few months have been very chaotic, and I haven't had a lot of downtime, and my downtime is spent sleeping most of the time. So I have not finished a book yet this year. We're getting there. The shortest book I read was 151 pages, and that book was A Psalm for the Wild Built. If you haven't read this duology, this little duet of books, I would highly recommend it, highly. I am going to do a whole separate video about my favorite fantasy and sci-fi reads from the year. The longest book I read in 2024 was House of Flame and Shadow at 835 pages. I'm not going to get into the controversy, to be honest with you, but that was the longest book I read this year. My average book length for the year was 414 pages. For most people, to have that be their average book length, that's a lot of pages to read, right? On average. And when I see people who say that they've read 900 books in a year, I'm like, okay, but how long was the average book? Because people must be consuming more audiobooks than I am, and really just doing that instead of watching TV. And I do doom scroll a lot. So listen, I'm going at my own pace. I'm not trying to hate on anyone that reads a lot or reads a little. I'm just saying I'm confused on how you do it. The most shelved book that I read was The Song of Achilles. That makes a lot of sense to me. 3 million people, 3.7 million people also shelved that book. Miss Miller, the way that you write is gorgeous and beautiful, and I'll read anything you write. Okay, the least shelved book that I read was Blood Test by Charles Baxter. It is, 7,000 people also shelved this book. I got this book on a sale cart at my local bookstore, and I thought it was good. It just wasn't the kind of book that I normally read. I reviewed it a little bit over on TikTok, so feel free to go check that out. I'll link that video in the description below if you want to go see what I thought about her. My average rating for 2024 was 4.2 stars. No one's surprised. I go off of the vibe. And sometimes I change a rating. I'll read a book and I'll rate it 5 stars immediately afterwards. And then a couple days will go by and I'll be okay, it definitely was not 5 stars and I'm going to change that. That's one of my things about Goodreads. I need the 0.5, I need the 0.2. I need to be able to go like a little bit, you know? What if it's not a full 4? I know that's a lot of people's issue as well, so there's really no need for me to ramble on about that at the moment. I can in another video, but that's not what today is about. I tend to rate a lot of books at like a 5 or a 4 star because I tend to read books that I know that I'm going to enjoy. You know what I mean? I don't venture out of my comfort zone very often, and I'm working on that. I was working on it at the end of the year, and I'm going to continue working on that. The 2 books that I'm reading currently, which I again will talk about later in this video, are both books that are not necessarily in my normal repertoire. So we're trying to expand our palette a bit, which is why it's taking me a little bit longer to read books, to be honest with you, because while I'm excited to read those books, my brain is like, you know, hardwired for fantasy and sci-fi. So I can like breeze through those books. I'm used to the magic systems. I'm used to figuring it all out. Real life books, I'm like, where's the tension? Where's the second chance romance? You know, there's like, where's the aliens? Are we on a dying planet? No, it's just the normal Earth and normal people problems. And I like can't really think about that right now. You know? Okay. The book that I read that was the highest rated on Goodreads at a 4.62 average stars is The Will of the Many. I have like so many thoughts about that book, and I am on the edge of my seat waiting for the sequel to come out. I kind of want to do a reread of it at some point this year because there were a lot of things I think that I didn't fully grasp the first time around or didn't like picture in the correct way. I don't know. It was a complicated book and I really, really liked it. So I'm glad that that's the highest rated because it deserves it. Like really, truly deserves to be rated that highly. Wow. Looking at all of my 2024 books, like in one place is kind of crazy because for me, and I think for many people, 54 books is like a lot of books to read. And I know that there are people who read a lot more books than that. And there are people who read a lot fewer books than that. But I'm having the time of my life reading literally any number of books in a year. So the first book that I read in 2024 was A Study in Drowning, which I absolutely loved. I loved that book. And I'm kind of sad that it was just like a standalone, even though I think it works really well as a standalone. I just like wanted a little bit more. I wanted to be in that world a little bit more, the characters, the magic, all of it. It was fantastic. I read a lot of YA this year because when the new Percy Jackson series came out on Disney Plus, my inner child said, let's read a couple of those again. And I said, absolutely, miss, let's get to it. So I reread, oh my God, I reread the Heroes of Olympus series because I wanted them to be like a little bit older, like, and I didn't want to reread Percy Jackson because I kind of wanted to view the show with like no bias because I haven't read those books in like a really long time. So I was excited to watch the show. So I reread The Heroes of Olympus, loved, so good, fantastic. There was a lot of fantasy this year. There were a lot. Some of my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books that I read this year are as follows. A Study in Drowning, A Psalm for the Wild Built, and its sequel, A Prayer for the Crown Shy. So good, amazing. The Shepherd King duology. All of the girlies on TikTok are loving this book, rightfully so. I think both of them are so good. Obviously, The Song of Achilles, no doubt, top 5 of the year. I read a little bit of Emily Henry this year, got a little bit into her, loving that. So excited for her new book coming out this year. I honestly haven't even looked up what it's about. I think I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to wait until it comes out and just like buy it and read it all in one day. I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things to do is when a book releases like on a Tuesday, take the day off, spend all day reading. Spend all day reading. If you can, literally do it. It's the best feeling in the world. I read Jurassic Park this year, which was so fun. I was not expecting to like the book as much as I did. It's different from the movie in the sense it's like much gorier, which worked. Like it's a little bit more horror than like thriller. I think that's where it differs in the movies. But such a good book. Would highly recommend if you like dinosaurs and horror. It's so fun. Oh my God, I read so many of the I read all of the Thursday Murder Club series. Obsessed. I'm reading everything Richard Osman writes, like forever and ever. And I cannot wait until the series comes out. Like, it's going to be so good. Or series, I think it's a movie. I don't know. Either way, I am pumped. Project Hail Mary, so good. Absolutely 5 stars. Rapid fire. I'm going to go through and name all of the books that I rated 5 stars in 2024. Rules of Civility, so good. Okay, it's rapid fire. What am I doing? Rules of Civility. The God of the Woods. If We Were Villains. Tress of the Emerald Sea, Project Hail Mary, The Last Devil to Die, The Thursday Murder Club, number 4, The Man Who Died Twice, The Thursday Murder Club, number 2, The Will of the Many, Two Twisted Crowns, Funny Story, Book Lovers, A Prayer for the Crown Shy, One Dark Window, The Song of Achilles, House of Flame and Shadow. I know, debatable, but let's not talk about it. And that's it. Wow. What a year, honestly. We went through a lot. We learned a lot. We changed, we grew. And I am so excited to see what my 2025 year in books is going to look like. So let's get into what I'm currently reading. First up, Intermezzo. It's taking me quite a bit to get through. I read Normal People a few years ago, and so I kind of forgot what Sally Rooney's writing style is like, and it is vastly different from reading like a fantasy book. So I'm trying to rewire my brain a bit to get back into this. But I'm currently on chapter 3, and I'm going to spend some time, hopefully this week, really getting into this, but I'm excited for it. And that's a wrap on, honestly, what is our first like official video of the Underhill Literary Society. Again, I am That Hobbit Girl Reads. You can find me under that on both Instagram and TikTok. Who knows if we'll still have TikTok in a few days. We'll see. And stay tuned for next week's video.